Okay, welcome to Order Militarist Radio TV, live on radio and video. And this is going to be a fun show.
Thank you for having me on, AJ. It's wonderful to see now that we can go live on radio, maybe someday live on video too.
Yeah. Let's mute that so we don't get feedback. All right. I guess we'll have callers in, but yeah. Okay. With our shows of the less connection to terrorism, what does Black Lives Matter believe, the dangers and destructiveness of revolutions. The next one is, how do you solve this problem? And so today's show is how to form a Christian political party. And as we said before, welcome, Brother Alexis.
Okay. Always an honor to be on Order Militarist Radio TV, and glad to see it's growing in its equipment. I'll point out the equipment is donated by the supporters of Order Militaris Catholicus, the members around the world, to help defend Christians. That's the apostolate of our order. We call ourselves a military order, but as a religious organization, we just take the spirit of the Crusaders. So I'm glad to see this apostolate growing. And this is a very important topic, so shoot away, AJ.
Well, we had a run-in with a group on Twitter 2 years ago who called itself a Christian party, wanting to follow the model of a GOP and Democrat party. And they reached out to me because of my ancestry. I proposed we use the same policies that St. King Louis IX used to rule France justly, which even the good protesters of the French Revolution that you told me about wanted his policies to come back. And I proposed this idea. They hated it. And they wanted something similar to the mess of the current political parties.
Yeah. This is one of the fundamental problems with modern democracy. People have their head in the well, let me say politely, they have their head in the sewer of politics. Modern politics is a sewer. And unless you step back, read some history, find out how mankind used to live, you can't really see what the problems are and the dead end we're in modern politics.
Yeah. So let's ask, was America founded as a Christian nation?
America was founded as a Christian nation. Remember, the 13 colonies were colonies of the Kingdom of Great Britain, which was a Christian kingdom, okay? The Church of England, of course, they weren't Catholic, but nevertheless, they were a Christian kingdom. They believed the authority of the crown came from Jesus Christ, and that the laws of the land should uphold the gospel. That was the fundamental legal foundation of the Kingdom of England. And the colonies, when they decided to start their war of independence, it wasn't to destroy Christian civilization. It wasn't to set up a state that would become an enemy of Christian civilization. 99% of all the men who fought in the American Revolution were devout Christian men. And they did it because of their faith in Christ, taught them that liberty was a good thing and they had a right to live in a state where they were justly treated. The war ended, there was the Articles of Federation, and then some years later they came up with the Constitution. But the Constitution is not a Christian document. Jesus Christ isn't mentioned once in it. I don't think there's one thing in the Constitution that you could find in the Bible except maybe the natural born citizen clause, which is taken from the Old Testament, where or one of the prophets says you should I think it was the prophet Samuel says to the people of Israel who wanted a king, choose one among your own and don't let foreigners reign over you. But that's about the only thing in there. So The American Revolution was a wonderful thing. It was a great movement. It has very significant in the history of mankind. But the American revolutionaries were robbed. They were tricked. They were defrauded by the central government, who set up a form of government where psychopaths can do anything they want, and they no longer have to follow the gospel or any kind of law of morality. They didn't openly say it. But when you have a form of government that does not say it's obliged to obey and serve Jesus Christ, you have a government that is basically saying without words that it's going to rebel against Jesus Christ and attack his people on earth. It's the same thing, kind of like if you were shipwrecked on an island, and it's just you and an escaped prisoner, because there was some prisoners being transported in the ship, and you know this guy's a mass murderer, and there is one knife on the island, and you say, well, are you going to agree to, be upright and everything like that? You swear in the Bible? He said, well, I'll agree to be upright and not murder you, but I'm not going to swear in the Bible. Would you give him the one knife? Okay,
No.
same thing with politicians. Politicians tend to be, as they say in Italian, fuori di testa, outside of their minds. They're out of their minds. They want as much power as they can get. There has to be a limit on the power of government, okay? The founding fathers were big on that, a limit on the power of the government. But they forgot the best limit of all, the best control of all, is the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, because that restrains all kinds of excesses. So it was a Christian nation. And boy, there was a lot of faith. I think every colony had an established church. Pennsylvania, I think it was the Anglicans. In Massachusetts, it was the Congregationalists. And so the colonies were profoundly religious in their whole forms of government, because they understood it's just common sense. If a Christian people is going to have a government, the government should be Christian. Christians understand what Christian laws are, so they have no problem living Christian laws. But if you have a government now that's run by other principles, then it becomes an enemy. So people complain today about the federal government being the enemy of America. It has always been the enemy of America, because it refused to submit to the God of Americans, which is Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Wasn't we call it Maryland now, but back then it was called Maryland. I believe it was a Catholic sanctuary state for Catholics.
Yeah, it was founded by I think the Lord of Baltimore, and he was a Catholic, and the English crown, which persecuted Catholics in a limited sense, not like they are in many Marxist states or have been since centuries since, allowed them to set up a Catholic colony. And it was, I think, majority Catholic for a while. Then they allowed some Protestants to come in and had a civil war and stuff. But it was founded, yeah, that's what Maryland's named after the mother of Jesus Christ. Okay, that's how Christian the age was. Okay, so, and there's countless places in the United States named after places in the Old and New Testament, because the people were profoundly Christian. They didn't have any qualms about naming their town, and when they founded it Bethlehem or something like that, because that was their life. Okay, that was their faith was their life. They weren't ashamed of it, and they could express their faith in public. Now we've arrived at a situation where if you were founding a town and you want to call it Bethlehem, you'd be sued because you're trying to impose your religion on me. Well, I'm sorry. If your religion is not the religion of the men who shed their blood in the revolution, get the hell out of the country, because you're not an American. Okay?
Yeah. All right. Since we know it was founded as a Christian nation, why is it important to restore America back to a Christian nation?
The blood of the revolutionaries is a pact. It's an obligation. It's a sacred thing that we, the heirs of the American Revolution, owe our first duty to, because we would not have the liberty we have today if then those men didn't die and shed their blood for us, okay? This is a duty we have that is more important than any other historic duty in our country. It's the existence of our nation. Our nation did not come from France. Our nation didn't come from Germany. Our nation didn't come from Russia, China, the Mideast. It didn't come from Mexico. It didn't come from NATO. It came from the blood of American revolutionaries who fought for their independence and the independence of all generations that would come after them. So they're the ones that had the courage to shed their blood. Their blood determines the nation that should be founded. They were Christians. The nation should be Christian, okay? The nation never was Christian, and then now the nation is anti-Christian. I mean, the Supreme Court is openly anti-Christian, saying you can kill children in the womb, that religious organizations have to do this and that, and they can't practice their freedom. Now it's just like your right to it's being black is just as equal as claiming you have some perverse sexual desire. I mean, talk about unchristian. That is vicious. No, they're beyond anti-Christian. They're viciously anti-human and racist. Okay, so Christians have to do something because this blood makes this baptize this nation. This nation is a Christian nation baptized in Christian blood, and we have not only the duty, we have the right to take charge in this country. And if we don't, we're betraying that blood, and we're betraying our own children and every other Christian in this country and all our ancestors. Okay, we can't pretend that the public order, the political order, is a part of human life where every foreigner and every foreign ideology has a claim over, but the rest of America belongs to America. No, if we say our central government in DC can be controlled by foreign ideas, foreign religions, foreign political thoughts, then we're basically saying we're not a free country. We're not independent. We have accepted slavery, and we're willing to bend over and let anyone do anything to us, okay? And that is not America. Let's take away all the slogans, take away all the spiel. I don't care what they say in the Pentagon, in the House of Representatives, or in the Senate, or in the White House. I don't care what the Democrats say or the Republicans say. The reality is that blood, the blood of Christians baptized this nation. This nation is consecrated to Christ. And I personally see a sign of this, that when the two towers were attacked and destroyed, they discovered in the ruins two girders that was still fused together, and they formed the shape of a cross. Okay, and I think that's a sign from Jesus Christ said, you can strike this nation as much as you want, but because it's baptized in Christian blood, this nation belongs to me, and I will have it. Okay, now Christians for centuries have talked about the church militant. It means we should practice our faith and resist temptations. Okay, but it also means that we have the right to be governed by Christians, and we should fight for that right, okay? Because if we don't have a Christian government, we're going to be persecuted and exterminated, because those who are not Christian hate Christians, okay? I'm thinking about the only religion, I don't think there's any religion that hasn't persecuted Christians somewhere in some part of the world. The non-Christian religions have persecuted us. The very first thing that happened to Christians is we were persecuted by the Jews. And they don't tell you that in school, okay? So not that we should have a persecution mentality, but we have to defend our rights. And since America is a Christian nation, the vast majority of Americans declare themselves to be Christians, even the ones who don't go to church believe in Jesus Christ. So it's not, I'm not talking about Christian in the sense of one religion of Christianity or one denomination. I'm talking about Christian in the most general sense. If we don't act up, if we don't realize that the political order must also be imbued by Christian faith, we're going to be exterminated, okay? Because that's what they're doing. Just look at all in the last century, all the power and the money, has it gone to Christians? No, it's not. The Christians have been made poor, slaves, have been given unsteady labor, unsteady jobs, and recently all locked up in our houses for the new religion of the pandemic, because you must believe in the pandemic. Otherwise, you are a threat to humanity. And heaven forbid you start singing in your church, because that's the threat to public health, that you sing in your Christian church. Don't you even dare. What do they say? They're Satanists, okay? They're satanic. They hate Jesus Christ so much, they invented this fake pandemic to shut down Christian churches and exterminate Christianity. That's what it's all about, okay? And to destroy the economy on top of it, okay? And now they want to vaccinate us all to change our genetic code that was given to us by Jesus Christ, our creator, okay? They're out to destroy the Christian people, even as a species, okay? So we have to do something. If we don't do anything, we will be exterminated because they look us at like pieces of meat. Now, most people don't realize there are books, religious books, that say Christians must be exterminated. One of them is the Quran. The Quran says, if you don't convert to Islam, you must be exterminated. That is not an exaggeration. Those aren't the exact words, but that's basically what it says. The Talmud, that many Jews follow, say at the end of time, Jews must exterminate all non-Jews, and that means us Christians. So here, two of the great religions of the world say that we must be exterminated. So if we go around, saying, oh no, everyone loves us, that's okay, we're going to be hoodwinked. Decade after decade, decade after decade. I mean, a Christian guy who bakes cakes for a living in Colorado didn't want to put art on a cake that would affirm a non-Christian thing. And boy, he's been taken to the Supreme Court. He's been taken to court twice over that. And they want to destroy his life, his name, his family, his psychology, everything about him, because he dared say, no, as a pastry artist, I will not promote other people's non-Christian views because I'm a Christian. My faith has a right to be practiced in my business. So he's being persecuted because it's not a Christian party. Republicans aren't going to save you. Democrats aren't going to save you. Why? Only Christ can save America. And for Christ to save America, we have to have the integrity to stand up and say, Lord, I'm with you. And my political party is with you. And we stand for your law. Now, that's what we have to do. That is the solution for America. Otherwise, America's just going to go down and down and down. They want to make us a Soviet dictatorship and lock us all up. That's what they want to do.
You're listening to Ordo Militaris Radio TV live on air and on video. Please go to ordo-militaris.net. Support us there, folks. If you like what you're hearing, like what you're seeing, please support us at ordo-militaris.net. And to get one of those giant flags behind Brother Alexis, go to ordo-militaris.us.
That's the battle flag of Lepanto. It's a wonderful, let me see if I can show it to you. That is a flag on which is the cross of Jesus Christ. And at the feet of the cross are the shields of Austria, the Papal States, Spain, and Venice. And why was that flag made? Because the Turks, the Muslim Turks, were going to invade Europe and kill everyone. They had this huge armada, the Navy, organized. And those four Catholic nations trusted in our Lord Jesus Christ, put his cross on their banner, and went to battle against a force that was twice their size and defeated them because they trusted in our Lord and they drew their swords in the name of Jesus Christ to defend Christian people from conquest and subjection. And God gave them the victory because they fought for the cause of Jesus Christ. The same thing with the Christian party. If we serve Jesus Christ, he will give us victory because Christ is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and every knee shall bend in his name, and every tongue shall confess to the glory of God that he is King, whether they like it or not, because he is Lord, and the angels, his angels govern this world, and he will give us the grace and the power and the means to do it. But we have to be loyal to him and realize that the whole world, even the public and political order and the government, belong to Jesus Christ. We can't cede anything to the non-Christian because the non-Christian will use it against us, okay? That doesn't mean we persecute other religions, but that does mean that the Christian religion cannot be persecuted. No law, no right, no duty, no obligation can be used as a pretext against a Christian expressing his faith. And that's the kind of government we need. And we need a political party to achieve that, because you're not going to have it by putting in non-Christians in office. A non-Christian, someone goes to Washington, he forgets who elected them. And if he's not even Christian, he wasn't elected by Christians to do a Christian thing, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Let's see here. I think it was on Mike Church's show on the Crusade channel. You can follow him on Twitter. He was talking about the Christian senator from Kentucky, Thomas Massey, who just won again his re-election. He doesn't want to put on that pin because there's some sort of evil power there. When he puts that sucker on, it changes who he is. And so he avoids put the senator pin.
Oh, okay.
And so he avoids whatever chance he can to not wear that pin so he can be himself.
A little station intermission here. Yeah, was it consecrated in some kind of Masonic rite, the senator's pin?
Must be, because I've never heard it. That explains why they act so weird when they put that pin for either the House or the Senate on. It changes them.
That might be true. I mean, I find it hard. I mean, if you have no Christian loyalty, I could see maybe that would be influenced. But if you're in the state of grace and you don't intend to put on something demonic, even if you do, it shouldn't have an immediate effect like that. But who's to say? We do have to admit that there is a spirituality. There are Satanists, and there is such thing as black magic, okay? Christians have counter effects to that, and that's Christian prayer, the sign of the cross, the sacraments, and our faith, and living a pure life, keeping the 10 Commandments. So that's the first I heard that, but you know, that's possible. But what we need is a Christian party, and Christian ministers need to preach this, okay? And this is one of the problems, because they saw that there could be a Christian party. They saw it in the 50s. So what did they do? They passed a law saying to churches, we'll exempt you from income tax if you never talk about politics, okay? If you never talk about politics. And you know, they hoodwinked all the churches in the country to shut up and not preach Christ in public. And you know, it's a trick, because Order Militaris is a Catholic company, a Christian company. We're not a nonprofit, okay? We're not a nonprofit. Yeah. But we don't pay taxes. Why don't we pay taxes? Because we give so much to charity that we never make a profit, okay? So what's the difference? The difference is, at Order Militaris as president, I can talk about politics. I can talk about religion. I have full freedom of speech, because we are organized as a company that could be obliged to pay taxes if we made a profit. We just haven't yet made a profit, okay? Whenever we have money and we're headed to making a profit, we give money to a charity, to the poor, to Christians who are being persecuted. And so we never have a profit. So is there a need for Christian churches to be silent? No, because I'm sure every Christian church also, at the end of the year, doesn't make a profit, okay? So why give up your free speech to be tax exempt if you get nothing out of it? You know, go to an accountant, have them look at your books, and have them redo them as if you were a for-profit. And you'll see that you have almost no tax burden at all. So why be silent? We have to open our mouths. So ministers need to get out of this idea that they can't talk about politics. And this whole tax exempt thing is just a Masonic trick. Okay, it's an atheistic trick to silence Christian churches, and we shouldn't accept it.
That was the Lyndon B. Johnson amendment, wasn't it?
I right off the top of my head, I can't quote it, but I think that's what it is. The Lyndon B. Johnson amendment. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we did a show on that, and we had a weird, strange caller. We didn't even do that show.
Well, if you can dig it up, play it again side by side with this one that we're doing live, and then we can refresh your memory. But it's been a while, that some years that we did one thing. I think you're right. I think it's the Lyndon B. Johnson amendment. So, but we got to talk about it, because Christ is God. He is the creator of the world. He is the redeemer of the world. And therefore, his faith touches upon all things. He is the light of the world. And that means of everything in the world, even of politics. So if you want light in politics, you need the gospel and the teaching of our Lord Jesus Christ. And you need to be loyal to him. And you can't say, because I'm running for office, I'm not going to talk about my faith. No. If you're going to run for office, bring the cross of Christ with you and the Bible, and say, okay, I am running for office and I'm a Christian. And that should give you confidence to vote for me, because as a Christian, I'm not going to persecute you. I'm not going to let the Marxists take over this country. I'm not going to let the poor be exploited. I'm not going to let citizens have their livelihood taken away by foreigners. I'm not going to let this country fall under foreign domination. These are all valid Christian things. So put Christianity on your shirt as a badge, because that guarantees you're not a psychopath like the people in Washington, who don't even have the courage to say, I'm going to run as a candidate in a Christian party. Okay. The mere moment they run on a non-Christian party ticket means they don't have faith. Okay. They don't have faith. And whether you do it in your town, your county, your state, or at the national level, have the courage to stand for it. But we do need a Christian party to help Christian candidates, obviously. And we need Christian PACs that are going to support Christian candidates. And we need a national alliance of Christian political organizations to work out a basic platform and get the thing done. It's not difficult. It's not a new science. So, you know.
Let's see here. I'm going to hit you with what the other folks would be saying. Thomas Jefferson wrote that letter to some Baptist lady. You're going to have separation of church and state. What's all that about?
There is nothing. There's the concept of separation of church and state is a complete invention of Jefferson's mind. It's insane, because what is it saying? It's saying the church is not part of society. Well, that's insane. If I'm part of society because I'm a citizen, and I go to the supermarket, the gas station, or a church, well, then all those are part of society, and all those are part of the political order, and therefore the political order must include the church. Okay, we can't pretend that people are not religious. Okay, that would be like pretending they have no values, no morals, and But when you say the church must be separated from the state in the way it's understood today, then basically saying is, we're going to treat you like an animal and not like a Christian. Okay, we're going to treat you as something that is not immortal, is not going to be judged by Jesus Christ, and is not living for the world to come. We're going to treat you just like a pagan. It's completely ridiculous. In its classical sense, separation of the church and state was because in England, after the Reformation, when the Church of England had as its head the King of England, it persecuted every other religion, okay, which was something that was viciously done in England. So the colonists wanted a separation of the state from the Anglican Church or something like that. But separation from a particular religious expression of Christianity and separation from Christ are totally two different things, okay? Okay, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Anglicans, and Catholics, we don't agree on all the sacraments, for example, okay? But that doesn't mean we disagree that Jesus Christ is God or our Savior or the King, or that the moral teaching should reign in society. We all agree on that. Okay, so this concept of separation of church and state is a bait and switch. They poo-poo this thing, but then they claim it means something else. Now, separation of church and state means no morality in the state. We define what's right and wrong. It's okay to kill babies if we say so. We say so, it's okay. It's okay to for two men to marry. We say so, we say so, it's okay. So what does that mean? It means the politicians have set themselves up as God, and they want us to regard them as God. Well, that's a religion, okay? So if we want separation of church and state, they need to stop acting as God. But are they going to? No. That phrase for them means you must obey us as God, okay? So what they mean by separation of church and state now is you can't express any religious opinion. You must accept us as God. And the Supreme Court is deciding what is divine law, okay? As it says in the Psalms, they have set their mouths up in the heavens and they dictate to the earth. That is the federal government. They're a bunch of psychopathic atheists and they're Satanists, okay? They can say all the sweet things all day long, but if they think the Supreme Court had the right to make abortion illegal, then they are Satanists and they're worshiping a false god, the Supreme Court, which is an idol, and that's Satanism. And no Christian can suffer or endure that, okay? So.
No. I got into different topic headings now. When it comes to when it comes to power in the local, state, and federal, what changes should a Christian party make?
Well, first of all, if a Christian party forms and runs candidates, almost all the laws of the United States, Christians have no objection to. Okay, so it's not like Christians are calling for revolution. Okay, but we need something in the Constitution. We need something in our state's constitutions. We need something in law that puts a limit on what the politicians can do. We have to explicitly say that what is right and wrong is not defined by politicians, okay? Politicians must be forbidden to make in law that what is iniquitous or unjust or immoral or perverse. We have to at least admit that, okay, which even non-Christians would accept. Now, Christians would put in law saying no law can be contrary to the laws of Jesus Christ and have a method for them to appeal. The first thing we need to do is get rid of the Supreme Court. Everyone on the Supreme Court needs to be fired, and we need to put on sound Christian men who, first of all, believe in Jesus Christ and recognize that the gospel is the foundation of our laws. Okay. So when any question comes up, their first thing is this case even regard morality? For example, the recent case in the Supreme Court, the justices should have approached it this way. They say, well, you know, there are men and there are women, and men have from God that which with a woman they can conceive children. And that's what sexuality is about, and that's its only purpose.
Yeah. And
to assert that, and your employer respects that. And he has no right to ruin his business or clientele's good name with some strange person that's making strange claims. Okay, that's common sense Christian solution to it. Oh, you say that today, you'll be persecuted. This video will probably be taken down by YouTube for just because I said it, because they're godless pieces of trash. Okay, and that's why we set up our own radio TV station, so that we can say the truth. Because if you don't start saying it, pretty soon they'll kill you unless you say what they say, because they don't want just silence. They want you to openly submit. And as it was said in the 70s, in their magazine out of New York City, their objective is to make it so mandatory that they can take every one of your sons and do with him what they want. I'm a monk, I won't say what that is, but you can imagine. Because for them, it's a sacrament. For them, it's superior to breeding. You're a breeder, but we're superior because we understand that sex has nothing to do with procreation. That's their mentality. Okay. They're absolutely whacked out. And those psychopaths are in control of the federal and state governments, even many local governments. Okay. They're in control of the bar associations, the lawyers associations, the professional associations. They're in control of the human resource departments in many companies. And alas, they're in control of many churches. Okay. And I will openly admit they're in control of most of the Catholic Church in the United States at the highest levels. Okay. So we Christians need to fight back, or we're going to be exterminated, because these people haven't got any kickback for 50 years. And now they're wetting their lips because they see that they are at the point where a little bit more and they can start massacring everyone in the country that opposes them, because that's what they want. They're absolutely psychopathic people.
Yeah. I was thinking hopefully we'd have more guests on with this one, but since it's just you and me, I was well, we did a show on what is Thomism. So here's the question: different Christian schools of thought. Which one teaches and proposes a good, moral, and just order to govern with?
There's different theories of Christian politics. Calvin felt that a Christian state should be kind of like a dictatorship. And when he took over Geneva, he made it so. And even the Catholic Church, we had someone like that in Italy. His name evades me at the moment. But Christianity isn't about dictatorship, because if Christ is the king, then none of us are. Okay. So Christianity doesn't have to support monarchy. It can, but it doesn't have to. It can support just as well a democracy. But in law, there must be, in an unstable, changing way, an affirmation of what is right and wrong, and what is the source of right and wrong. And that can't be the opinion of justices. It has to be Scripture, the teaching of Christ. It has to be, because that's unchanging, and it has to be an agreement. You're not going to play games with that. But obviously, in a Christian state, can be many different opinions about particular things, whether to fund this program for the poor or that one. That's not really said in Scripture which one is or where you do it. So there's a lot of freedom on that. But we're looking at major questions now of human existence and liberty that these psychopaths are attacking. And Christianity is the sound defense against it. It will defend America against its enemies. Because I say, America is a Christian country, and its culture, its founding, the blood that baptized it, and what most of the people is. But, some towns don't want, there are towns in Kentucky that don't serve liquor. They're dry towns, and there are towns that are wet towns. Scripture doesn't say that liquor is evil. It does say drunkenness is. So there's different ways of solving the problem, okay, and approaching it. Unlike other religions, we Christians don't believe things are evil. We only believe sin is evil, okay, and vices are evil. So, and we have hope that everyone can be redeemed. So we don't write people off in eternity. But we recognize that those who are opposed to Christ are evil, okay? They're going to destroy humanity only because Christ, being the author of humanity and the governor of this world, he's given us the best laws. So all we have to do is be faithful to him to have a peaceful and prosperous state, okay? And Christianity, I think, is best suited for politics because it's a religion of liberty. In Christianity, you're not a Christian because you were born one by race, as in Judaism. You're not a Christian because you're forced to accept it under pain of threat, like in Islam. You're not a Christian because you're involved in superstitions, like in ancient ancestral superstitions, like in Hinduism. You're not a Christian because you're out to escape personal responsibility and identity, as you are in Buddhism. Okay, and so a Christian Christianity is based on the use of reason, the recognition of, if we investigate creation, we can learn. That's science. The individual existence of the human person as something that's unique, because in Christianity we believe every individual is made in the image and likeness of God, the one God. And so we're a religion of peace. We just don't say it and go around massacring everyone in the world. We actually say it and don't go around massacring people in the world. And Christianity has proven itself for 2,000 years, have been the foundation of every nation's peace, prosperity, and development. So it's not just a false claim. Okay. So there are different political thoughts from how you could organize it. Obviously, we Catholics would have a slightly different view with others, but in general, nearly all Christian groups agree on basic fundamental things. You know, murder is wrong. You know, adultery is wrong. Okay, so I think one effect a Christian political society would be promote fidelity in marriage. Okay, promote the birthing of children in wedlock. Every child having the right to a father and mother, from which it comes so many good things in society, and without which there are so many problems in society. So the zeal of Christians, the ingenuity of Christians, also because of their religion, it is the source of a lot more solutions to problems. Because the left and these psychopaths, they don't want to solve problems. They want to claim that because there is this problem, give me the right to create more problems. Because not being fixed to the law of Christ, they wander around like fallen stars. Okay. So there are different views of it, and that's not so necessary. What's necessity is saying we're going to live as Christians and be faithful as Christians, and we're going to have a politics that promotes the Christian society and the Christian values of things, and is not loyal to the globalists, is not loyal to the Satanists, is not loyal to the Muslims, and is not loyal to the super wealthy who just want to exploit everyone, and is not loyal to the Jews who have their own nation and their own people, and that's not America, okay? And if a Jew wants to live in America, he should live like America, not try to make America Israel, okay? Just like an Italian doesn't want to make America Italy. That's just common sense. So that's true for Italians, Frenchmen, Germans. Why isn't it true for people like Arabs and Jews or Hindus, okay? Or Chinese, okay? So there's different approaches to how you can solve the situation, but what is really needed is a Christian party that accepts in the big principles, Christianity, its values, and morals.
Yeah. Regarding how evil the left is and how it attacks Christians and Christianity and all the smear tactics they go after us with. There's another video, old video, black and white, soundbite from G. Edward Griffin. And if you want, I could play it.
Yeah, you have it ready to play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we good?
Put your mic near your speakers, pick it up.
Let's see what we got here.
Now, Griffin was what? A journalist? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, he's a journalist.
I don't hear anything.
Whoever did this did the sound too low, folks. So I'll
Okay.
just I'll just put it into the show page of the. You
Okay.
know, it's only a minute. Yeah, about a minute, 28 minutes long. So
It's a great video. Everyone should watch it.
you talk this video clip out of the entire thing from this talk is on communist smear tactics. It's I don't know how he got this information, folks, but it is eye-opening to see. And I'm glad it's making the rounds on Twitter and everywhere else. Okay, since we can't hear the video clip, there is something going around in the Protestant circles and some in the Catholic circles called Christian Zionism. How is that not good for a true Christian party?
Christian Zionism. So, in as much as I understand it, it's the idea that if you're a Christian, you need to support Israel. We have to understand that Israel, the modern state, has nothing to do with the Bible, okay? Because as it's clear in the Bible, as Moses wrote in Exodus and Deuteronomy, when the Messiah comes, those who don't believe in him will be cut off from God's people, okay? So Jews who don't believe in Jesus Christ are not part of God's people, even though they are Jews. They might think they are, but they're not, because you have to be you can't be in schism, in rebellion with the King of David, okay? The heir of the throne of David, and that's Jesus Christ. So, yes, at the end of time, Jews are going to convert. I don't doubt that. And there are Jews converting in Israel, okay? But Israel is not a biblical state. It's a modern political state. It was founded by Jews who are mostly atheists and Marxists. Not many of them are believers. Actually, the real faithful Jews who believe the Old Testament and aren't Christian, they stay in New York City because they say until the Messiah comes, you shouldn't go to Israel. Okay, so Christian Zionism is I don't know, some kind of a strange idea from ministers who don't read their New Testament, because it's very clear in the New Testament that Christ Jesus founded a church, and that is the fulfillment of the prophecy of Daniel. That rock will take down the nations and establish a huge mountain of God's kingdom in this world. It's not Israel.
Yeah. I'm looking at this article I posted in the show page on it. It's here. It's from Catholic Zionism, Contradiction in Terms by Robert Sungenis from March 3rd, 2020. Let's see. Let's go to the meat of the stuff. Any discussion of modern Zionist movement must begin with the biblical claim that the land of Canaan was given by God to the people of Israel. Any discussion of that claim leads back to the call of Abraham in Genesis 12 and its immediate literally context. Although separated by 15 years, Anderson and Da Costa have the same thesis. Modern Jews are to receive the land of Palestine under divine mandate, and thus Catholics should prepare themselves to be on the right side of the fence, lest they find themselves not only anti-Semitic, but also anti-God.
That's ridiculous. Because it says in the Old Testament that if the people of God aren't faithful to God, they will lose the inheritance of the land. Okay. So since they rejected Jesus Christ and have rejected him for 2,000 years, they no longer have a claim to the land. But the other thing is that God didn't create heaven and earth and give people immortal souls so they could live on land. He gave it to them so that they might serve him in his kingdom, which transcends this world. Okay. So you got to snap out of the idea that humans are only to live on earth. That's nowhere taught in Scripture. Okay, it's true. God promised Israel to the people of Israel, and they were in slavery in Egypt, and it was part of the covenant with His people for all the centuries. But as soon as they stopped believing in Jesus Christ, they rebelled. Okay, and Christ, the Son of God, that means the God of Israel, who became a Jew and the heir of David, now has all the rights. He has all rights in his hand. And his kingdom now is not just Israel, it's the whole world. Okay. So,
And
it's just completely ridiculous that Israel has anything to do whatsoever. The new Israel is not the territory of Palestine. The
yeah,
new Israel is the people of Jesus Christ, the church of Jesus Christ, people who are baptized and believe and confess his name. That's the new Israel. And whether you are Jewish blood or not, that doesn't matter anymore. It's faith is what matters.
yeah. And this Robert Sejunis, I mean, he did a great show with Brother Andre Marie. It's hour long, but of course, my church has it under. You got to be a premium member to listen to it, which is awful. But he has pretty much what he talked about on this article for free to read, which is good. And it continues about this Anderson guy. To back up his claim that Jews have always had a divine entitlement to the land of Palestine, Anderson proposed that the Old Testament passages that promise land to Israel are both irrevocable and unfulfilled. In pro-Zionist literature, we see the word irrevocable quite often. It, it excludes a legal and impregnable flavor to the alleged entitlement, implying that God is duty-bound to give Palestine to the Jews as if it were from an irrevocable living trust. In further description of his thesis, Anderson holds that God's promise to the Jewish people have not come to an end, and that those promises are linked inextricably to the land. That we must insist that the promises of Scripture are indeed inviolable, and that Israel's attachment to this land is underwritten by God's providential decree. Anderson doesn't stop there. The Bible would seem to allow only one answer. The return to Zion is the beginning of the Messianic era. The Messianic era? What could this possibly mean? Catholics used to believe that we were already in the Messianic era, since Jesus Christ came 2,000 years ago as our Savior. Perhaps like the Protestant Zionist preacher John Hagee, Anderson doesn't believe that Jesus came as the Messiah for the Jews, unless the Jews cannot be blamed for rejecting him. It goes on and on, points out how this so-called Catholic Anderson is not believing what the church teaches.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying I think Anderson is a Jewish surname, but look at Christ himself said that he came to save the Jews. And he even said to some non-Jews that asked him for a miracle, I've come for the sons of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That was his mission. And he sent the apostles to preach the gospel outside of Israel. Okay. And so this is just totally messed up theology, completely screwed up. The Zion, the real Zion, is the heavenly Jerusalem that will descend from the heavens at the end of time. And Christ, the Lamb, is its King and light and Lord. The institution that Christ founded, the church, is to build the world up and prepare for that, and to save souls, to populate that kingdom. Because at the end of time, those who refuse to be obedient to Jesus Christ will be judged and condemned to hell. Okay. So Zionism, look at the Zionists are very influential, very, very powerful, and well-funded, and they put out their propaganda and try to get everyone to support their little state. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, and every night on television it was, what's going on in Israel? What's going on in Israel? It's like Israel was bordered the United States on the New York border or something. It was ridiculous. And so they're probably pushing Zionism. You see Zionism, Wikipedia is full of Zionism. Any kind of lie that can be subverted to push that, because Zionism is a form of Marxism. Even Orthodox Jews aren't Zionists, okay, because this is a ridiculous theory. But as proof that Israel has no divine cause is this: Israel doesn't control all of Jerusalem. It only controls half of Jerusalem, because God didn't give them the power to take all of Jerusalem. All of Jerusalem was only taken by one force, and that was the Catholic forces of the First Crusade. Why? Because we are the true heirs of Christ the King, so he gave us the right to take his kingdom. Okay, so and Israel claims. I've seen Zionists claim that Israel's existed for 3,000 years or something. Israel's only existed for 47 years or something, 56 years. It doesn't exist for 2,000 years. Catholics ruled Palestine longer than Jews ever ruled it, okay? So let's not get into, because Catholics ruled Palestine from the 4th century AD until the 7th, and then from the 11th century to the 13th century. So we ruled Israel more longer than that. And Catholics are the ones who have the right to govern Jerusalem and Israel, because we are the servants of Christ the King, and that is his land, okay? That land doesn't belong to Jewish people, it belongs to the heir of the King of David, because he has the authority over it. And you can read that in the book of Samuel. I'm not inventing it up, okay? But it certainly doesn't belong to Jews who don't believe in God. And something like 60% of all the Jews in Israel are atheists. So how on earth can they claim that God gave them the land if they don't even believe God existed? Okay? It's completely irrational. Okay? It's completely irrational. And if you're going to believe Jewish scriptures, then it only belongs to you if you accept the Messiah when he comes. And you didn't accept the Messiah when he comes. Matter of fact, some of your ancestors put him to death. Okay, so you certainly don't merit the land by doing the exact opposite of what you should do. So the modern state of Israel is not a religious entity. It has no theologic foundation whatsoever, and it is a racist state. If you're a Jew, you have more rights than a non-Jew. For example, in Israel, if I'm a Christian and I've always owned the land under my house, and I rent you an apartment in my property for 20 years, come that 20th year, he can go to court and claim that land is now his, no longer mine, because he is a Jew and he has a right to that land. That is racism. Can you imagine if the Frenchman went to Poland and said, well, 2,000 years ago, the Frankish tribes lived here at Warsaw. So this city belongs to us, and you have to give me your house because I've been renting it for 20 years. Wouldn't that person be considered psychotic? Of course they would. Can you imagine Imagine a Turk going from Turkey to Kazakhstan. And he said, well, 2,000 years ago, the Turkish people lived here. So this city belongs to me, and I've been renting it for 20 years for you. So you have to give me your house. You know what kind of wars you would have over that? And that's why there's no peace in Israel, because they have a false claim. They're trying to take a bit of this and a bit of that. They're just manufacturing a false claim. The Jews don't have any right to Israel. They don't have any more right to Israel. They once had it, they rebelled, and the Romans took it away from them. Once you've lost it, it's not yours anymore. That's the law of nations. Hasn't been yours for 2,000 years, and all of a sudden you pop up there. You start an illicit revolution, and you steal land from people who have been living there for centuries. They now call themselves Palestinians, but they were just the local Muslim population and also Christian. You still can land some Christians. And so who do you think you are? That the whole world must change their religion and their politics to justify your theft of land. So the idea that Israel is somehow a God-defended, God-fearing land is a complete lie, okay? I'm not pro-Palestinian, and I'm not pro the conflict that's going over there, but it's very understandable how the entire Arab world, the entire Muslim world, is outraged by the existence of this illegal state that grabbed land that didn't belong to them and set up a racist state that is just as racist as the Nazi Aryan state was, or the South African apartheid state was. There are blacks in in Africa who convert to Judaism and go to Israel, because Israel says every Jew can become a citizen. The blacks come right in the airport and they're shipped right back out because they're not going to let a black person in their country. No way. But you are a racist because you don't like Barack Obama being president of your country. See the double face, the complete double face, you know. And I've had this happen to me in countries outside the United States. I was holding an Italian flag one day, and a neighbor who's Jewish said to me, "Oh, are you becoming a nationalist?" See, he's threatened by the fact that I take pride being an Italian with an Italian flag because he's Jewish. He's not from Israel. See, if Italians start saying it's great to be Italian, he feels frightened because this is not his country. Well, that's just natural. But don't tell me not to be proud of my own country. Can you imagine if you were in Israel and you saw a Jew with a Jewish flag and said, "Oh, are you being a nationalist? This is a nation for Muslims too." No, oh, you couldn't say that in Israel. You get slapped right down. So we have to realize that in Christianity, our religion teaches us to be honest, not two-faced. But that's not the same thing in Talmudic Judaism. Talmudic Judaism, you can say one thing to the outsider and another thing to the insider. It's like double truth. So the idea that Christians should support Israel is a political doctrine of Zionism, has nothing to do with the Gospels or Scripture. And if you find that in the Bible, you are obviously reading a different book because it's not in there, okay? It's not in there at all. And so it's also silly to think that God would only want to save one people. He actually said in the New Testament, he wants all men to be saved, not just Jews, okay? And the Talmud, which most Jews follow either directly or indirectly, is a racist book because it claims that Jews are superior to humans, just like humans are superior to dogs. Okay? But a dog, what kind of, I mean, there are people who say dogs have rights, but you know that a dog doesn't have rights. You could shoot it, you could kill it. Okay, it's a dog. So if they're saying that they to us are like we are to dogs, they're basically saying they could wipe us all out. There'd be no problem. It'd just be a sanitary operation. That is worse racism than Aryanists. Even Adolf Hitler, who himself was Jewish of descent, even Adolf Hitler admitted that non-Aryans were human beings. Okay, he felt they were imperfect or lower grade, but he still admitted they were human beings. The Talmud doesn't even admit that. Okay, it doesn't admit that we are the same species. They think that they're, way up there. So Israel is a racist state, and any God-fearing Christian around the world should have the honesty to say it's a racist state. Okay, just all the problems the Christians have over there. There's a church founded on the tomb of David that for centuries was a Christian church. The Jews seize power in 47, they take that property. Oh no, you can't use that as a church because that's the tomb of David, our ancestor. He's not your ancestor because you don't even believe in his son, who Jesus Christ, who is the Messiah and Lord. Okay, you rebelled against David. Okay, so don't claim that he's your king and you can take that back. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. So they're anti-Christian, they're anti-sanity, they're Marxist, and it's complete invention. It's an illegal rebellion. They took away lands and properties of honest, humble people, and they've created a source of wars and divisions that's just unending because what they're doing is unjust, okay? It's not like the Crusaders, after centuries of persecution by Muslims, went over there to liberate Christians so that Christians could come there and worship. Crusaders didn't go to Israel and say, well, as Palestine say, since we're Christians, we have the right to everything and you Muslims have no rights. No, they allowed Muslims and Jews to live in their states with equal rights just like everyone else, okay? So it wasn't a racist state. So the whole concept of Christian Zionism is a heresy, we would say in Christian theology. It's a heresy. It has nothing to do with the gospel. It's a different religion. Don't let that into your church at all. That would be, because that turns you basically into a servant of the political order of Israel. And it's a very clever trick, but it's just a bunch of hogwash.
Yeah. You are listening to Order Militaris Radio TV live on radio. And this video that we are also recording will be on YouTube after we are done. Yeah. I'm just thinking how the Palestinian Christians, when it's Christmas time, or Passiontide or Easter, they cannot cross over to either Bethlehem or to the Holy Sepulchre.
Mm-hmm. Why? It's racist. You would think they say, okay, because they're Christian, we're going to let them in because they're going to be peaceful. No, they say, but because they're not Jews, they're a threat, so we're not going to let them in. I mean, it's completely racist, completely, and it's completely outrageous, and we won't even talk about how Israel supports groups that attack Christians in other parts of the. Israel supports the Kurds in Iraq, who are constantly stealing towns, lands, and fields from Christians. Why? Because the Kurds are the enemies of Iran, and Israel looks the other way. Okay, so
Yeah.
Israel supports Turkey, and Turkey is constantly taking churches from Christians. Does the Israeli state complain about that? No, because Turkey is an ally against Syria. So, any Christian who thinks he's obligated or something's in the Bible saying he needs to support Israel is just out of his mind.
Yeah. It's, yeah. Okay, then. How would a Christian party truly help those in the slums or ghettos rise out of that mess and get proper education, proper pay, and an honest day's work?
The whole concept of the ghetto needs to be, you need to get rid of the concept. First of all, everyone is equal regardless of his skin color. At the same time, too, if your ancestors were slaves, one, you have to get over it and forgive the past. You can't constantly live in blaming everyone for your problems. Another major point is the Christian family needs to be restored so that the father stays with the mother, and you don't have one woman with 4 sons and 4 different men. That wasn't the way before the 60s. In the 60s, drugs were allowed to be brought into the black neighborhoods, and they broke down the families and the churches, and it was some claim the CIA was behind it, others claim the Marxists were behind it, but no one helped these people. So we need to support the black churches in these neighborhoods, all the churches in the neighborhoods. We need to support the family. We need to break up the gangs, not in the sense of putting them all in jail, but talking to these men one-on-one. Look, true masculinity is not going around at nighttime like a bunch of thugs. True masculinity is you study, you get a good job, you support your family, you marry one woman, you remain faithful to her, you take care of your ma, your pa, you defend your home. Okay, drugs dissolve your mind. Don't even waste your life with them. And anyone selling drugs in your neighborhood is an enemy of your neighborhood, and you need to finger him to the police, because the police are your best friends, not the gang. So you have to break up the gangs completely, and there needs to be a concerted community effort that talks to every boy and girl in that neighborhood. Every year in school, they need to be taught how evil gangs are. And the real ringleaders of these nationwide gangs, international gangs, they need to be arrested and shipped out, okay? And there needs to be more community patrolling. And there needs to be more, a lot of these neighborhoods, one reason why is the kids don't have anything to do that's constructive. So you need more basketball courts, baseball fields, you need parks, you need activities that they can get involved in before and after school. You need help creating jobs. Burning down the neighborhoods is the exact opposite of what you need to do. You need to help black businesses, okay? If they don't know how, if they want to start a business and need help, they need help doing that. That needs to be targeted help in those areas. And then the cities need to provide services. There needs to be public transportation in that neighborhood. If the buildings are falling down, there needs to be some kind of public project to give them good, stable housing. And you have to incentivize certain things, because some populations, like in these areas, need low rents. You need to guarantee low rents. You can't let unscrupulous people go in there and just rip these people off. And so there has to be more community advocacy. There has to be, I think a lot of the social welfare programs should be distributed by the religious institutions, because they know their neighborhood and they know the people. That will attract people to communities that are teaching them right and wrong, building up social relationships, training the young people for marriage and work and the future life. And the concept of the ghetto needs to just be eliminated, just like anything else. You need to promote cultural activities that build their pride. They want to celebrate a day of their Black ancestry. That's something that should be. Let them go on a parade. That's a wonderful thing. But also teach them about what Africa is and not what the Marxists claim it is. Okay. And also, don't fixate. Your race isn't your whole identity. Okay. I know I'm an Italian American. Do I think I'm an Italian American every day of my life? No, I don't. Every time I have a difficulties, my first reaction is they don't like me because I'm Italian. No, I don't. I've forgotten that mentality, you know. So it's harder. Okay. So if the darker your skin color, the more you're different from everyone around you, it's harder. It's a harder thing to overcome because you do look different. Okay. But that doesn't mean you are. Okay. So and then the best people in the community need to be given the roles. Don't elect people who are just political frauds. Elect the successful doctor, the successful professor, the successful businessman who is a member of your community and has made it through all the difficulties and knows what they are. Elect the honest people, okay? And don't let the gangs run the neighborhood. So there's lots of things that could be done, but the Marxists will never do it. And I don't think the Republicans would do it because it takes a Christian heart. You have to approach the problem like a father and like a Christian. And you have to work closely with the Christian churches and we build them up and help them become institutions of stability and of progress, okay, which they're not by all these, you know, funny little law, social welfare laws, which are just to break down the family. For example, they broke down the family in the Black neighborhoods by saying, if you have children out of wedlock, we'll give you even more money than if you had children in wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that broke down the family. It should be the opposite. It should be if you don't have if you have a child in wedlock, you'll get more money in welfare support. Because then people say, okay, I have a problem with the guy who's the father of my kid, but I'm going to get over it. Okay, and because living for the future, working for the kids, best having given them a stable home, these are all good things, and it helps me pay my bills when I have that difficulty. So that's not that's a sane way of approaching the problem. Christian way.
Yeah. That's where I like the stuff Viktor Orban's doing in Hungary. He's supporting the family, married family life, man and woman, and you get, I don't know the wording because I can't find the actual law documents. I don't read Hungarian, but I think it says if you have a large family, the country will help you with the expenses.
Yeah, I think it's if you have more than 3 kids, then he'll give you some help. That's a wonderful kind of doing legislation. Other thing you need is you need to take all the exploitative organizations out of the neighborhood. You have to clean out all the Marxists, all the leftists, all these fruitcakes, and all these other people that are just preying on Black people and instrumentalized. The worst of which is the Democratic Party, which is this party of slave owners, and they want to enslave Blacks, and that's what they've been doing in these ghettos. So you remove all those things, and the Black people will flourish, because Black people are no less intelligent, no less creative, no less industrious, no less hopeful. But you have to understand they might have different ways of doing things, expressing themselves, different ways of dancing, different ways of speaking. Don't look down on that. Everyone, every culture and every nation has their different ways of doing things, okay? You have to appreciate it. That is actually a wonderful thing. It's a cultural enrichment. So, but you have to take away all these groups that want to exploit them, okay, and break them down. Oh, and Planned Parenthood, which was founded to exterminate Black children in the womb, okay? Planned Parenthood has been involved in killing 30 million Black people in America. And there are only 30 million Black people in America. That means for every Black person you see, another was killed by Planned Parenthood, who was funded by white people. And what kind of white people? Rockefellers and Bill Gates' family is big, on Planned Parenthood. So when you see the Democratic Party that you might vote for because you're black and you live in inner city, pushing Planned Parenthood, to pushing your extermination, okay? Your extermination, because that's what it was all about. They called it eugenics back then. Now they call it family planning.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, since you went there, now this would be his. How would if a Christian party was in all 50 states, both houses of government, plus the Christian party had judges on the Supreme Court, the president, the VP, how could they end all forms of abortion, contraception, pornography, and restore all the old laws to keep obscene things off the airwaves in print, video, etc.?
Okay, so you could do it by constitutional amendment. Okay, you could do it by a law, but it would probably just be best to say, look, define a human being as coming into existence in the moment of conception. It's a scientific fact and recognizing it. And just declare that there cannot be any laws, judgments, court decisions that contradict the facts of science. Okay, that would be the easiest thing. And you have to. One problem in the United States system is because of the kind of people that have been running it since it was founded, because it wasn't founded under Jesus Christ, is there has to be a recognition that there were those bad things done in the past, error and sin and great injustice. And the Supreme Court justices, for example, who ruled in favor of abortion in Roe v. Wade, they need to be personally condemned. And if they're buried on federal land, those graves need to be dug up and they can be moved to private land. And if there's any statues of them, they're the statues you should be ripping down because they were evil people. They were more evil than Adolf Hitler because their decision has led to something like 65 million Americans being killed. And Hitler was only responsible for like 40 million. Okay. So they were evil people. And those are the statues ripped down. So that's that. As for pornography, look at anyone promoting information that's damaging to health or has false information, the government doesn't allow that. But nearly all pornographers are inciting people to do things that are unhealthy, dangerous, destructive of another person's body, and psychologically unsound or even sadistic. So shut them down on that basis, saying you are now liable because you said that you showed people doing something that is medically unsafe. And you're promoting that. And that's false medical practice. You could shut them down just like that. So it's not difficult to do, just use some common sense. But I think only a Christian has that kind of common sense and that kind of resolve to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if people want to look at pornography, they're going to look at pornography. But if companies that make money promoting it, they're the ones that need to be punished because they are breaking down the health of other people in the country by promoting false information. Okay.
Yeah.
That's medically unsound.
And if we had a Christian party totally in charge, I would want what was done in Poland. Crown and proclaim Christ as King, Mary as Queen over all these United States, and proclaim through Congress marriage between one man and one woman.
Yeah, I mean, Congress, okay, I totally agree with the first part. The second part, the Congress can proclaim it, but it's an institution of nature. It pre-exists the state. No government has authority to change what marriage means, okay? And yet but perhaps the government needs to state it now because there's so many nutty people. It also needs to outlaw any kind of fraud in politics. If someone says, vote for me because I'm going to help the town have a better water system, and when he gets in office, he doesn't help the town have a better water system, that's fraud, and he should go to prison, okay? So that when the leftist comes along and says, vote for me and I'll help black people. And at the end of their term, black people are even in a worse condition. They go to prison for fraud. Because then you'll catch all these liars, because the Marxists, the leftists, these psychopaths in politics, they're all liars. And if you just look at what they said and what they did, you arrest them for fraud. Okay. And that's the easiest way to handle it, because we need honesty in politics. Otherwise, politics becomes a criminal enterprise, which is what it's become.
Yeah. You're listening to Order Militaris Radio TV live on radio. You're watching us on YouTube. You're watching us on BitChute. Please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and BitChute. Like our videos, share them. And please go to ordo-militaris.net. Click any of the show topic pages. Scroll down to the very bottom. You'll see free will monthly subscription to Order Militaris Radio TV. Then click the bluish green button that says make monthly pledge of support. Let's see here. Now, finally get to the security and the wars section. All these administrations seem like we get into non-endless wars for years. Trillions spent. Nothing really happens. And we don't really finish them like we used to. What would the Christian Party do to make sure we go there, do what we have to do, win the war, get our butts home?
Okay, so most of these wars since the Second World War have to do with the fact that foreigners are allowed to buy our politicians. So the first thing you need to do is make it absolutely illegal that any foreigner speak to our senators or congressmen. Okay, because they're there to represent us, not foreign powers. Secondly, we have to adopt the principle that America exists for the sake of America. We're not the policemen of the world. And if we go beyond our borders, it has to be to promote our values. We are not the police hired for and not paid by Israel and Saudi Arabia to solve their problems in the Mideast, which is what we've been doing the last 20 years. And they haven't even paid us for it. They couldn't pay us for it because we spent $1 trillion and they don't even have that much money. But they took a lot less money and they bought our politicians and got them to waste our taxpayers' money. Our country is now in debt to the tune of like $19 trillion. And if we don't solve that debt, it's going to destroy us. And that's because our politicians have been bribed by foreigners. And the military-industrial complex in America wants to make lots of money, and they don't care if they bankrupt America. And they always want an administration that wants to start some war so they can sell more stuff. Well, there's nothing wrong with having a good, strong military-industrial complex, but not when you're 19 trillion in debt, okay? That needs to be solved. And so there are some major things that can be done, and a Christian government needs first to balance the budget and pay off the debt, okay? And there's ways to do that if you want to do it. But you have to take out of the pocket of the American taxpayer all the hands that have reached into the pockets via Washington, D.C. That's all come out. All these lobbying groups that are out to suck the taxpayers' money. And I think the federal government needs a lot less authority. For example, I think that income tax should be paid to the state governments, not to the federal government. Then the states decide how much they're going to pay to the federal government. Because that way, you don't have tons of money all concentrated in one place that promotes every greedy, dishonest person around the world to come to Washington, D.C. and try to get some of it. And the states can use that money better. They know how to use it better. And because the federal government exists, according to the Constitution, for one purpose only, to defend the nation from foreign invasion. The purpose of the federal government is not to be an international police organization, okay? And if we conquer something overseas, we should keep it. America is probably the stupidest empire that ever existed in the history of humanity, because everything we conquer, we give it right back again. And we don't make people free. We saved France in the Second World War, and we gave it back to the Freemasons who oppressed Christians. So what was the purpose of that? Okay. No purpose at all, okay? So it's just insane. And It's because we have a federal government and a constitution that in no way represents the blood in which this nation was baptized at its birth, the blood of Christian soldiers, of the revolutionaries. We have had always a federal government that has been to exploit what happened in the revolution for the sake of others' interests, the interest of internationals.
Yeah. We did a show, what was it, a few days ago on the history of policing in the English-speaking world. All this talk of prison reform, police reform, the Democrats and some GOP idiots wanting to abolish the police in prisons. As Christians, we believe in just punishment, even the death penalty. But so many Catholics, even Protestants, and a few Orthodox Christians believe the modern teaching of rejecting the death penalty. What the Church has taught it is okay since the beginning. What should a Christian party stance be on all of this?
We should have capital punishment because the state exists to defend the honest and repress wickedness. The state doesn't exist to give everyone who attempted a serious crime a free hotel for the rest of his life. Okay? That's just insane, and it's unjust. It's unjust to the victims who get nothing. Their loved one was murdered, and this guy gets a free hotel and a free gym for the rest of his life. Okay. So capital punishment also discourages other people committing the crime. Don't listen to all the liberal propaganda that says that's not a case. It is the case. The other thing is there are certain families that are criminals. And if they commit capital crimes, pretty soon those families won't exist and they won't have children. There'll be less criminals in the next generation. So the purpose of the state is to make the honest prosper and the wicked disappear. And why are the peoples of Western Europe so law-abiding? Because when Europe was Catholic, there was capital punishment for many offenses, and the wicked got it, and that the honest lived. Okay, and that's your ancestors too, because even if your ancestors in recent centuries weren't Catholic, you go back long enough, they were all Catholic. Okay, so capital punishment is a necessity of the state and of civilization. It's also a necessity of the moral order, and it's the best solution. However, it has to be used temperately and justly. There has to be true causes. It can't be he's guilty because someone thinks he's guilty. In many Western towns there in Texas, honest people have been sent to prison, okay, even to death, and they didn't commit the crime because, well, he's a black boy, and someone said a black boy did it. You know, that's just ridiculous. So there has to be checks and balances in a system. There has to be maybe a special criteria for any case that could receive a capital punishment. There has to be a lot more eyes. I would say there should be more than one judge. In the Middle Ages, there wasn't one judge and a jury. There was a jury of judges. There was 8 judges there, all who were experts in law. So it wasn't like you could easily hoodwink anyone to decide. And we certainly have enough lawyers and judges in America that we could do juries of judges. But in capital cases, I think there needs to be something like that. The jury trial is good, but juries can easily be swayed by unscrupulous lawyers. Have alongside that jury a jury of judges that follow very carefully the criteria of evidence. And if there's any lack in the evidence of certainty of who did it, okay, then the capital sentence has to be omitted, okay? It can only be imposed when there's absolute certainty of guilt, okay, in the capital crime. So that's the way to balance the two together. And the execution should be televised, in my opinion. So people see justice being done. This is not vengeance. This is how you instruct society in morality, okay? You see the end of the story in its last moments. You see the creep get what he deserved, okay?
Yeah.
And any legal organization that thinks that's unjust or exploitive, those kind of organizations need to be deported from America because they're just Marxist liars, okay? And once you have a good legal system that imposes capital punishment in a proper, honest, just way, then you're going to see a lot of crimes. There should be capital punishment for drug dealers. Get rid of them, okay? I'm not talking about the guy who sells an ounce or two. I'm talking about the guy comes in your neighborhood with a trunk with 20 kilos. Okay, get rid of those people. They're psychopaths. There are people who smuggle in illegals. Capital punishment for them. The people are found with a truck with 20 dead people inside. They get 3 years and they go out and do it again. Okay. The guy who drives down the street drunk and runs over 20 people and kills 5 of them and names 15 of them, 5 years he's out. No, death penalty. It needs to be death penalty for these kind of things. So people realize, you know, there are things more important than the life of the criminal. And that is the order of justice and retribution that the state owes the victims. Because the state exists for the honest who are the victims. The state does not have any duty towards the guilty other than to impose justice, even in the most extreme sense, and that is capital punishment.
Yeah. In a medieval era, if they were sentenced to death, weren't there sometimes a sign put on them for what their crime was?
Well, sometimes the public, there was the thing called the pillory in the Middle Ages in some countries, and you just wore a sign of what your crime was. But if you were put to death, I don't know if they made you wear a sign as you went off to be executed or not. I guess it depended on the times. Got to remember, they didn't have newspapers and electronic means, so they had to use crude methods of announcing why the guy was being put to death. Because if you saw a criminal going down the street, you wouldn't know what's going on. But if they put his name and why he was sentenced, then it was kind of like an easy way of identifying it. But public humiliation was used in the Middle Ages because people lived in the same small villages their whole life, and generation after generation. Everyone knew everyone. So public humiliation was a powerful method of punishment, because no one wanted to look bad in the sight of his neighbors that knew him. Now with modern, especially in the United States, with people moving around, public humiliation probably wouldn't mean much to anyone, since no one would know who you are or remember what you suffered. And then even in America, allowing people to change their names and stuff like that. So,
yeah. How should a Christian party end the drug war and all the gang wars on the streets across the nation?
Okay, so I mentioned for the drug wars, you have to drug dealers need to get capital punishment. The gangs need to be completely broken up. If the U.S. government knows the names of 25,000 members of a certain gang, you need to arrest them all in the same weekend. Call out the military, arrest the whole bunch, put them in a concentration camp, and sort them out from then on. Okay. Gangs are so bad now in America. I think we need to do what was done in the Al Capone era. Okay. When there was Italian mafia, the U.S. government had no problem of sending out the G-men with submachine guns and just getting rid of them in the street. There was no trial or anything like that. And they used the concept of martial law in extreme cases. And I think we've arrived at a point in the United States. But it probably will take a presidential candidate who's been in the military, who's been a policeman, because it takes someone who really has, I can't say the word because I'm a monk, but you know what, has that what makes a man a man.
Yeah.
Because we don't have it. We have these wussies. We have these wussies in politics today.
Yeah.
Just at most they'll talk about it. At most.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk on Twitter. So much talk, like, why isn't he doing something? I was like, we didn't elect a king here, folks. The governor and the mayor has to call him, say, we need help. Mm-hmm. Unless he wants to do that insurrection act, which all the brass are like, no.
But states are sovereign, so states can also establish insurrection acts and take decisive means. When a state disarms itself and says we're not going to have capital punishment, they basically tell criminals, do what you like. Do what you like.
Yeah. Now regarding Antifa, BLM, other anarchists, Marxists, communist groups that is destroying cities, monuments. How would the Christian party restore order, remove each and every single one off the street, and would a Christian party finally go after those funding these revolutionaries?
So yeah, obviously anyone who funds these groups should go to prison. Soros should be arrested immediately because he's funded them. Once their money dries up, mostly they'll disappear. But we need laws that allow citizens to organize militia in every town, city, and county, so that when the chief of police, the mayor, or the governor needs help, he doesn't have to call Washington. Call them in your own neighborhood, because the people in your own neighborhood are going to know who's local and who's not. They're able to hear, that's not an accent from my state. I know that person's from somewhere else. You need to stop the buses coming into your state or they're carrying these creeps. Be proactive. Don't expect the federal government to do everything. States are sovereign. Take some initiative. Organize. They do all this planning for a hurricane coming. They do nothing planning for social unrest. I mean, you have some really excellent-minded people in your state. Get them all together and organize a plan of action. You don't have to call in the military. Call up the militia. That's what it's there for, and that's why there's a Second Amendment.
Yeah. Speaking of monuments and Christian monuments, I don't know if it was because of our video on defending St. King Louis IX or what, but a group of Catholics got into the media, got a news story published last night that they're calling for Catholics and Christians and people of goodwill to go to the forest park where that beautiful gold equestrian statue of St. King Louis IX is, to protest it by praying a rosary and to protect it on Saturday, June 27th at 12 p.m. Central.
Okay, that's great. I don't think they'll be able to. I mean, praying the rosary is great, but they better bring some thing to defend themselves if there's continuous riots going on. And it shouldn't just be at noon. It should be a 24-hour guard. You and I said this on Auto Militaris Radio 2-3 years ago. There needs to be local organizations. We told people that, if you're going to lament the statue coming down, but you're not willing to defend it, what kind of person are you? Come on now. So once again, it's another proof that we need militia. We need citizen action. And it's not difficult to do because, these creeps are cowards. They're not going to come at a mass of 100 men who are well armed. They're always going to look for the business of a poor black and burn that down. That's what they're going to do. So.
Yeah. At least that's a start. I shared it with some veteran groups who are, the law-abiding militia groups. Who are in Oath Keepers,
Mm-hmm.
who have, a organized group, law-abiding, in almost every city or state about what's going on last night. And when I got my microphone to work, I did a 20-minute program on it, just real quick, and got it shared once it got uploaded to our place where we upload our shows.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully those guys who are veterans, trained, you don't want to mess with them in a dark alley.
Rallying around a significant statue in your city that could be threatened or may be threatened or is threatened is a great way to start the revolution to take back your town. Okay. Start at a central point and work out from there. And catch these people and do citizens arrest on them and haul them off to the police. Get some vans ready and get some plastic ties and tie them up and take them to the police. And have some people who are armed and also have some people with cell phones so they can record the crimes each guy's committed and his arrest and being taken to the police, just so you have a record to defend yourself. And be proactive about it. Just don't sit and let it happen. You have to get out of the television culture.
Yeah. there is a few more reports. A special monument in Poland where they celebrated the freedom from all the communist state there.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter has an issue with it, saying it looks like a female part on a African American woman part. So they're going to try to do something in Poland, but you guys got to learn something. Poland is strictly anti-communist. They don't put up with crap, and you're going to be met with force. If you never learned your history, folks, learn about Jan Sobieski. That's how pissed off you're going to make these Polish Catholics. Then in Louisville, Kentucky, there is reports that the police chief has asked for help from the citizens and give them whatever deputization or whatever it's called, because there's another Black Lives Matter Antifa thing going to happen there, and I can't find actual news reports on it, but people from Louisville on Twitter had shared this news saying, yeah, armed citizens have been given proper leadway by the police to protect the city, and the Kentuckians have awoken.
That's great. They're going to give a great example. Kentucky is called what? The volunteer state, I think.
No, what is it? I think what is it? Let's see here.
That's great. That's common sense. That's what they've been doing. That's what we've been advocating. So that's great.
Yeah. I think it's the Bluegrass State. I'm not sure.
Oh, Bluegrass State.
But yeah. And I told him, well, that's good. At least one southern state's waking up. Now I just need the Northern Virginia Army to reawaken.
They'll claim you're a racist because you said the Northern Virginia Army. Even though Virginia is a heavily black city.
Yeah. Well, that's about all the news I have to share right now, and we have gone through all the questions except maybe one where we could touch on a little bit more. We touched on it a little bit with the Baker. How would a Christian party undo the current Supreme Court unjust rulings regarding companies that cannot fire those who are LGBTQ, and how would a Christian party protect these businesses from the LGBTQ mobs?
Okay, so the Supreme Court, according to the Constitution, it doesn't say how many justices are on it. Congress can decide that. So Congress needs to reduce the Supreme Court down to like Justice Thomas, one judge. Then bring all the cases that need to be reviewed to him again and have him redecide them. And then they could expand the court back up to 12 by appointing people like Justice Thomas. And then you solve the problem in 1 week. Tell him to be expedited about it. He can just read the minority opinion and approve that in his own and re-adjudicate it. There's nothing against that. It's perfectly constitutional. So, but there has to be a will, in both the House and the Senate. Yeah. That means you have to elect a Christian party. That's why you need a Christian party. Republicans and Democrats will never do it. Never, ever, ever. Look at the current Supreme Court is made up by people appointed by Republicans in the Senate. Completely useless. They did exactly what the Marxist Democrats wanted.
Yeah. How would the Christian party protect these? How would the Christian party if and when and if it ever came to be, how would it protect businesses such as the baker in Colorado, the baker up in Oregon, the baker, a few other bakeries and other
Well,
small.
the baker in Colorado already went to the Supreme Court and won, and they said that he suffered religious prejudice. But their ruling was a bit weak. That ruling should better be that in your business and in the way you conduct it, and your artistic expression and the words and images you use, no one can oblige you to do something against your religion. And there have been many cases where someone goes to a bakery run by Muslims and asks them to draw a picture of Muhammad, and they don't do it. Do they get sued? No. This guy was attacked because he opposed the left's agenda of perversion. And so not only should it be ruled in his favor, the commission there in Colorado that went after him twice now, they should all go to prison for their lives or be deported from the country because they're violating the Constitution. They're trying to deprive him of his religious liberty in his own business and destroy his business. That's racketeering, okay? And they should be forced to pay him 10 times what he had to pay in his legal expenses because they're vicious. And those people need to be removed from government, and politicians appointed them also need to go to jail because it's conspiracy against the rights of citizens. Conspiracy. It's criminal anti-constitutional conspiracy.
Well, the bakers in Oregon, similar situation as in Colorado. They won their cases, but the LGBTQ mob was even more violent, more hostile. They couldn't keep up with counterattacks, so they had to close their shop.
Yeah, so political organizations that engage in that kind of harassment, they should all be arrested for racketeering. It's a federal crime. It's already a federal statute. And they should all go to jail for lives or be deported because they're involved in a criminal conspiracy against the constitutional rights of a citizen. And if the KKK is illegal for doing what they did against blacks, why are these groups not illegal for what they do against Christians? Okay, it's a worse crime against a Christian. Why? Because to attack someone for being a Christian is a worse crime than attacking a person for being human, because the order of religion is above the order of race. So if this is illegal, that also must be illegal. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the current political parties you have, one will say, no, it's perfectly just what was done against them. And the other will say, oh, it's a shame it happened. Let's try to see it doesn't happen again. Parties like that are worthless, useless. One is your enemy and one is not your friend. Not your ally.
Anything else you want to touch on? We have 2 hours left.
No, okay. AJ, I have to go because I have to eat lunch. So we've been on a long time. Okay.
All right. Okay. I need to get some breakfast too. So this is Order Terrace Radio TV on air live now. Finally, please support us at ordermilterraceradio.net. Sorry. I'm looking at it, I just couldn't see it. ordo-militaris.net. That is Order Terrace Radio TV. Click any of the show pages, scroll down all the way to the bottom, and become a monthly supporter. On the top page, it has our Order Terrace Radio store. Click that, go to the Teespring deal, get some merch. Everything goes to the Order Terrace Catholicus, and it goes right back into the apostolate right here. You get more equipment, anything else that we might need for this radio station, and yeah. Okay, this is Order Terrace Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.